Okay, in this video set, we're going to look at the first three sections of chapter 4, and then we'll do the second three in a different assignment, and the last one is a supplement. So here we have chapter 4, word problems. Sometimes we call these applications. So you're just going to read through this table here on page 43 of your workbook. So start with that. And anything you're not familiar with, I mean, you're probably pretty used to this stuff by now, but some of the things are a little bit trickier. Like, for example, if you have the difference between something, so the difference between X and Y, whichever one comes first will go on the left. However, you have to be a little more careful when you have something like subtracted from, and then it says 3 subtracted from T. And then you would make sure that even though you read the 3 first here in the words, you're going to write it second in the equation or the expression, because you're subtracting the 3 from T. So really pay attention to that kind of thing. Same thing with division is quotient. So if you have something like just the quotient of T and X, you would just write it whichever one comes first on top. But again, you just have to really pay attention to the context of those. So let me know if you have any questions on that. Also here for multiplication, just the different ways that you can write stuff. You may be a little bit familiar with some of them, but not others. All right, here's a couple more ways to write things. If you have a power, you would just raise it up as an exponent. Make sure I can clearly see like it's small and raised up to the right. And equals is probably the only thing you might not have heard is yields is a little bit new. So here we have section 4.1, integer problems. So this is where we have just kind of generic numbers. They're not a lot of context, but we're just going to see how we can put phrases together. I have a 4-step rubric that I grade on, and so I want to make sure we write that all out. So I'm going to write those in for you, and then we'll pick apart the problem. So first I'll read the problem. I'm on page 44. Example 4.1. 5 less than 3 times a number is 19. What is the number? So first thing we want to do, I'm going to write these in blue. So we have A. Step A is declare unknowns and assign a letter. So I actually wrote this out. I paused it and wrote it out, so you don't have to see me taking forever to do that. But declare unknown or unknowns, I want to specify there, okay? And assign a letter. So make sure you write that in your notes. And then, so pause that if you need time to do that. And then we're going to look here. Okay, so what don't we know and what do we know? We can kind of think about that too, like what is given to us at the same time. So we might, just write a little side note, like think about what is given and what is not. Okay, I might kind of compare them. So this is 5 less than 3 times the number is 19. So we don't know the number. That's our unknown, but we have a lot of given things. So we can start to piece together the other parts. So let's first say let n equal a number. So I definitely want to see this in higher math. As you go up through the ranks, you're going to need to declare your unknown or unknowns. It's just standard procedure. It's kind of like capitalizing a sentence. Okay. The next thing I wrote here is write a formula and or equation to represent the problem. So you have to take that given info and mix it in with the, not given info. So that's why I had you write this over here. So we're going to have to think about that and piece it together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is look up here. I have 5 less than 3 times a number. So I'm just going to translate that into numbers and symbols rather than words. And then is 19. So I would write 5 less would be -5. Then 3 times the number. So 3 times the number, that's going to be my 3n, because that's a number, right? So 3n is what I'm taking 5 less from, equals 19. Okay. So this is the tricky part. The 5 less comes first, but that doesn't say doesn't say 5 minus 3 times the number. It says 5 less than, and so that's a critical piece. Now from here, you just have to solve and show your steps. So that's part C, solve showing steps. So one thing I also want to point out too with part B is if there was a standard formula like area or perimeter or something to that effect, you would need to write that. Like you could write that the formula is when we don't have anything plugged in yet, where an equation is when we filled stuff in. And we don't always have a formula. We need to make it up on our own, like the equation, and lay it out and change those words and phrases and things like that into numbers and symbols. So now solve showing steps. You guys can pause the video and do that. I'll work it out. This is pretty simple at this point for you. So here I've worked out the problem. I get n equals 8 right here. One thing to note is that a lot of times these kind of run together, especially B and C will run together. So you don't have to write all the words for each of these steps, but just make sure they're all there. Sometimes people label them for me, and that's helpful. So I got 8. Pop it back in, just do a quick check. D, interpret your answer in a sentence with units, like the appropriate units, like are they feet, are they inches, or if there are any, right? And meaning. So give it context if there is any. I mean, in this one, it's pretty simple, so there's not really too much to say, but I might just say, simply the number is 8. And that's my final answer, but I have all these parts there. Okay, so we'll do one where we're not writing all the words there with the model for you, but that make sure that you can get all the pieces. So do this one as a classwork. So you're going to pause, right? And just make sure you have all the pieces. The A, so for A, you can just do, I'll start it off for you. Let n equal something. So you're going to pick what you want that to be. And then part B is where you're going to do your equation. So you're going to have something similar to this. Again, you don't need to write out all the words. And then C is where you're going to do the solving. And D is your answer. So leave yourself some space, and then D would go down below. Okay, so here's the answer. Let n equal a number. And then we have 7 more than twice the number is less than 6, 3 times less 6 less than 3 times the same number. What is the number? So I'm just writing out 2n plus 7 equals 3n minus 6. And then I solved it. I just did some efficient solving there. You can do it in more steps if you want. I get 13 equals n, and then my sentence is the number is 13. And that's really all there is to it for the model and the process of writing it out for integer numbers. Now, when we have a system, then we can be a little more methodical when they get more challenging. Like the next few sets, they're on page 45. we're going to look at these, and you have consecutive integers. And so we need to really systematically lay out our problems. That makes it so much easier in the long run. I know a lot of people just kind of don't want to use algebra maybe for these. I think, oh, it's easy, I could do that in my head. But there comes a point where you can't, so you want to have a process. So consecutive integers, I want you to read through this definition here, what that means. It's just numbers next to each other. You can read that in more detail. But if we have, for example, if I have the number 1, the next consecutive integer would be 2. So we're not looking at the fractions in between, it's just integers. If I wanted to look at the next odd integer, I would be looking at 3, right, for odds. So I have to think I would add 2. That's 2 more this time, right? And then if I had 5, that would be actually 1 plus 4. This would be 1 plus 2, right? And this is just the 1. So actually I would write the odds as x plus 2, x plus 4, and so on and so forth. Where just consecutive, if I had like originally 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter if they're negative or what, but it'll always work. You just say the first one is, and we don't know what the first one is. That's what we're trying to figure out based on the info. But I just know to get from 1 to 2, say this is x, this would be x plus 1. This would be x plus 2, so on and so forth. So for even numbers, it's just the same thing. If I had my evens, I would have 2, 4, 6, so on and so forth. And I would have, again, x plus 2, x plus 4. So I'm not sure if you've seen that before, so I want to make sure, you look through that. So if we want to find 3 consecutive numbers whose sum is 543, our first step is we are going to declare our unknowns. So we would and we just write the word let and put a comma, x equal and I just abbreviate first number. You can use the little pound symbol to say number. X plus 1, I usually put them in parentheses just to be real clear, but you don't necessarily have to because we're just adding. But if we were doing any kind of multiplying, like on some of them we will be, you want to just get in the habit of that. And then x plus 2 equals the third number. Now I read my problem that they all add up. The sum is 543. So see if you can do the equation part. Just lay it all out and solve it and see what you get. So maybe pause and do a little classwork there. Okay, so here I've written out my sum. I'm just adding first, second, and third numbers together to get 543. That becomes 3x plus 3 equals 543. X equals 180. Once I do my algebra on that, showing my steps, I could subtract the 3 there, and I'd get 3x equals 540. This one is one where you could really streamline it. You could kind of do it in your head, so it's okay. The numbers are 180, 181, and 182, and that's as simple as your sentence needs to be. Now we have example 4.4, find 3 consecutive even integers. Now remember what I said about the evens, you have to skip over the odd one, right? So pause the video. I'm going to write out what these unknowns should be, just so you're sure, and then you go ahead and solve it. Okay, see if you can set it up first, right? So we'll and then check in. Okay, so this is part A, and you don't always have to write the letters, but it's helpful. Let x equal first number, x plus 2 equals second number, x plus 4 equals third number. Then go ahead and add them up to equal 84 and solve. Okay, so here's my equation originally, so that's part B. Then I combine like terms and I solve. I get 26, but I'm not done yet. One thing I want to point out too, when I wrote my equation, I just removed the parentheses that I had here because I didn't have anything I needed to distribute. But you do want to be sure you have them there initially because that is a quantity. It's represented as one number. Those two pieces that eventually will make one number. So here we have x equals 26. And so when we write that, that's just the first number, but the question asks find all three. So watch for that, because if you didn't have these other two, you'd be marked wrong. You'd get most of the credit, but you get a point off for not having all of them. So you can just sub back into here. So 26 is x, then 26 plus 2 would be 28. And then 26 plus 4 is 30, or you could just think, well, I know they're even, so 26, 28, 30. I just skip up. So this last one here for this section 4.1, and we'll stop this video and I'll make a new one for 4.2. But find 4 consecutive odd integers. So it's odd, but the layout is the same because you're just skipping over that even number. So go ahead and try that one on your own. This will be a classwork. Okay, so pause and do it all by yourself, and then I'll write the answers up. Okay, so the numbers are 35, 37, 39, and 41. So take a minute to check your work against mine here. If you have any discrepancies or questions, just write in the comments box of your submission in Canvas. If you write a note here on your notes, I won't see it till I grade, and I usually don't grade for, as long as you've submitted it, I just kind of mark them off. But if there's a little note, I may not see it, or I'm not going to see it in a timely way. So if you have a question, write in the comments of your grade book, and then I will see that. I get those emailed directly to me right away. All right, so that's it for 4.1. Have an awesome day.